Welcome to the Education Corner, a podcast by Education Choices magazine.
Education Corner podcast would like to welcome Mr. Will Newman, head of Cranleigh Prep School in Surrey. Cranleigh Prep School's aim is to provide a stimulating and challenging academic environment whilst enabling children aged 7 to 13 to grow in confidence, learning how to celebrate and build upon success, as well as being resilient and determined in defeat. Through a strong sense of community, children develop team skills and become increasingly aware of their responsibilities to one another. Sport, music, drama, art, and a myriad of other opportunities provides an enjoyable balance to classroom learning. They also learn respect and empathy for those with different interests to themselves. Pupils leave with a definite sense of purpose, well prepared for their senior schools and beyond. Will joined Cranleigh Prep as a head at the beginning of this year and had previously worked at schools including Zebra Prep, Taunton Prep, and Edgeborough School. It's a real pleasure to have you with us, Will.
Thanks, Chloe. I'm excited. This is my first podcast ever. So every day is a school day, particularly when you work in a school. So I'm looking forward to it. That was a lovely intro. Thank you. Just to be so that listeners are clear, when I started at the start of this year, it's this calendar year. So I am 7 or 8 weeks into this job. It's so
Quite right,
I
quite
am very,
right.
very fresh.
And I think also to add to that intro, obviously you're on site, having only been there the other day, and you literally walk across the road to Cranleigh Senior
Yeah.
School, and so there is a natural feed right the way through, isn't there, between the two of you, and it's a very harmonious and successful prep feeding through to the senior
Yeah.
school.
But very much so. I mean, in a way, I think we've got the best of both worlds. We've got our own campus at the prep school, our own space. But whenever we want to reach out to the prep school, which is to the senior school rather, which is often, we've got the benefit of that continuity, but yet having our own space when we want our own space.
Firstly, first question, obviously, you're now head,
Hmm.
8 weeks in.
Yeah.
Um, but can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to your role, Cranley?
Absolutely. I mean, question of how far back do you want to go? So, if we skip through sort of school stuff, I was at St. Luke's College at Exeter University, training to be a teacher there for 4 years on a B.Ed course. Those degrees actually are very rare these days now. Most people bolt a PGCE onto a 3-year specialism. Not me. So we were part of a 4 year, just training to be a science and a PE teacher. Did that for 4 years. Then taught at a big secondary college in Devon at Ivybridge. Through that period, I was applying for some scholarships, and I was fortunate enough to get one and went to Canada for 2 years to do my master's. Came back to the UK and landed, if I'm completely honest with you, landed in a prep school job as a stopgap, as I thought at the time, until I went back into secondary teaching. And within a week, just realized I'd found my calling and loved it. And that's where I've stayed ever since in prep school. So that was a school in Surrey. I went to another school in Surrey where I was the house parent, assistant head, the director of sport. Then to Taunton as senior deputy, and then up to Zebra Prep for 7.5 years as head. And now here I am back in the Surrey Hills.
And it's wonderful to have you so close by. Could you tell us a little bit about the ethos and values at Cranleigh Prep School?
It's this is a word I think that's probably used a lot for prep schools, but it is really genuinely a family, um, and a family in that the our aims and our ethos, the way we bring up our pupils, if you like, is that of a family. You know, I think of our children here as in many ways as I think of my own children. We all want the best for our kids. We all want them to explore every avenue, every interest that they might possibly have when they're at sort of prep school age. And that's what we do here at the prep school at Cranleigh. We live to our code of conduct. We have some very clear values that we all conform to, aspire to, live by. And the culture, we might talk about culture later, but the culture is very much one of family, family first, and it's that feel of wanting the best for every individual at the school.
Absolutely. And I really felt it when I was walking around, particularly the boarding house.
Yeah,
It had a truly homely feel.
yeah.
The school motto is Ex Cultura Robert, from culture comes strength. Could you tell us more about the culture at Cranley Prep and how this supports your students to have the strength to succeed at quite young ages, really?
Yeah, they are. I mean, we will talk later about how young we're going to go, but at the moment we start at year three. Yeah, exactly. Exciting times. So yeah, when I came on some of my sort of pre-appointment visits and took assemblies, we talked about culture with the children, and actually we still talk about culture in my assemblies now. Um, because I think that our school motto, from culture comes strength, you might sort of flip to thinking, well, this is about performing arts. This is about literature. This is about theatre, etc. And actually, I think for me, it's more about from culture as in a shared way of working, a shared set of values. And from that shared set of values, from us all ascribing to the same aim, same ethos, that brings strength. So put it another way, it's all of us pulling in the same direction. And that's so in my early time here, it's been picking up as to what that culture feels like, what it sounds like, what it looks like, and talking to the children over and over and over, repeating the fact that when we're all in it together, when we're all collaborating, we're all pulling in the same direction, then that's when genuine magic happens. That's when you're at your absolute strongest. We've spent a lot of time doing that, making sure that everyone in the school is aligned, everyone knows what it is to be Cranleighn. What does that look like? What does a Cranleighn talk about? How do they talk? So for me, it's about alignment, our school motto.
Very much so. And in this edition, um, we're particularly focusing on boarding as an option for many children and parents. Could you tell us more about boarding at Cranley Prep and how pupils benefit from boarding at this prep stage, particularly 3 to 13, I think is something that we're particularly interested in.
Of course. Well, firstly, it's fun. The children have a great time, and never underestimate sort of the value of that and the happiness that having a good time brings. It also, actually, I'm going to tie back into that culture bit for a second because it gives you even more opportunity to, if you like, immerse is the best way of putting it. Immerse the children in the culture that you want them to be a part of. In the boarding house, although it's a relaxed environment, the values that we want as a family are still the same. And so the children buy into that even more. It's like prep school plus, if you like, Chloe, the fact that they are there beyond the hours of the school day, they're still getting immersed in that same rich environment. I'm an absolute evangelist when it comes to this now. In an era and in a society where, completely honest, I do feel that sometimes children are accelerated through their childhood quicker than as a parent I wanted. And as I think as young parents, many of the parents that I meet feel the same. Boarding in the nicest possible way just puts a sense check on them. And I think that the way that our children are completely screen free in the boarding environment, and there's no battle over that because everyone's doing it. There's the real herd mentality works in that instance. Completely screen free. They spend their evenings and their mornings and everywhere in between just talking to each other, mucking around with their friends, doing all kinds of daft games, ridiculousness. I think that is a wonderful antidote to a society in which children's childhood is in danger of being eroded. So when it comes to that 13 plus bit, I think that you have in the nicest possible, most deliberate way, allowed your child to be a child for just a little bit longer.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got extensive grounds as well for them to explore. I know when I was there, I think they were going off to do some, can't remember, some woods activity.
Yeah, yeah.
It was all going on. In this edition, we're obviously discussing boarding, and we've also had a boarding schools panel. But why do you think that boarding is still of such an important provision for so many families in the modern day? I mean, I know when I was there, you were saying to me that the boarders come from far afield, some international, but you've also got children whose parents live just down the road
Mm.
choosing to board as an option. Why do you feel that that is the case?
Well, you've seen it yourself, Chloe. So when you've come around, you've had a look around the school and you've seen the grounds, the resources, the facilities that these children then have at their disposal, at their fingertips. The school becomes their home at 6 o'clock p.m. So if you if you love a school in which you've got your own astroturf and a swimming pool and a gym and all the rest of these things that the children do, its own woodlands, then there's that. There's also, we appreciate that parents are working hard to send children to our school, and that sometimes involves both parents working late. Um, and some families may choose to use nannies or car shares or however they might choose to solve that particular problem. But boarding is a means to not only find that convenience, but also it's more than just convenience. It's everything else I've just described above it. I think it really works with modern families and hardworking families. I think there's a whole raft of benefits that the children get from it that they wouldn't even understand that they're getting from it. We talk a lot about curriculum and co-curriculum, but actually hidden curriculum is probably the most important part of that. And when you've got children that are learning, first of all, take responsibility for yourself. So get your own stuff sorted, organize your own gear, take responsibility for your own way of approaching that evening or that morning. But then after that, take responsibility for somebody else, and get to know somebody else who's slightly different to you. I think we're also back to the society bit. I think unless we work hard, we're in danger of working up. Our children grow up in a quite homogenous society where they hang out and they do things with the children that they choose to spend all of their time with all the time. But boarding actually teaches them a real life skill in that this is how to rub up alongside somebody else who you may not necessarily gravitate towards in the playground, but actually you're going to be in the same dorm tonight. And there's the give and take that comes with that, and the tolerance that comes with that. And I think that is incredibly valuable to kids. And you get all of that with the benefit, the experience of and the convenience that boarding brings.
And also you've got all your drama and sports. I imagine to some level, if they're having to come in early in the morning, if they're leaving late at night, that there's a lot to be said for being able to sleep over and not go out late. Or I think that was one of the things that we talked about when I was there.
And
Um,
if you add up the time that it takes to come in and go back from school, and you multiply that by the number of days in a term, then you're buying yourself an awful lot of fun for that as well.
and well, Cranleigh people stay at the prep school until 13. Now, obviously, that's when your senior school starts.
Yep.
But it's a big discussion because there is the 11 plus, as we all know, and lots of children do move at 11.
Mm.
What do you feel the benefit of staying at the prep school through to 13 rather than moving to your senior school at 11?
I mean, I've always worked at 13 plus prep schools. When I came back from Canada, it was into a 13 plus prep school, and I've stayed there ever since in that sector because I really believe in the whole journey, but the last 2 years, in year seven, year eight, I think are often transformative. Um, and I'm someone who likes to talk in analogies, if I'm honest with you, Chloe. And the best one I can think of for this, and I've used it and thought about it a number of times, it's like packing your bag. And we've all had times where we've gone on holiday, and the night before we've left it too late. We've tried to cram too much into the day, and we've packed our bag in an absolute rush. I know I have, and it's chaos. And you forget stuff, and you go, "Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll have to buy another one of those when I get there." And there's been other times when actually, for whatever reason, had more time, and you've done it properly, and everything's regimented. It's normally when Liz is in charge in our family, but that's when that happens. Um, and for me, the number of children that I've seen at end of year six who just haven't had time to pack their bag properly, and they're not ready to go on that trip into an 11 to 18 school because they haven't got that resilience, they haven't found their flow, they haven't really discovered what it is that sparks their interest in a different co-curricular field. They haven't got confidence in themselves and not articulate, and they just need a little bit more time to pack their bag. Um, and when you've got a 13 plus prep school that doesn't compromise on any of the resources or facilities or the expertise in the common room to give them what they need from a curricular level or indeed co-curricular, but also to give them that space and time to get that bag packed properly. And then they step off on the next step of the journey, completely equipped, completely ready to flourish, ready to fly at the next level. Then you can tell, I hope, I'm really passionate about that. And I think it's a really important piece for us at Cranleigh.
And I think that's very well expressed. I think also for many children, it just gives them that little bit of time to mature as well. I mean, a lot of the time, I think the reason for the question, and it's a parental question as much as anything, do I move him at 11? Do I move him at
Yeah.
13 or her? Um, and, I think it depends on each and every child. But a lot of the testing is taking place in year six. And
Mm.
I think that is also causing a little bit of confusion for parents because it's like, well, if I'm testing him and he's getting the offers, should I just move them then? Whereas I would take it from what you're saying, that even if they do get their offers or they are going up to the senior school, it's just giving them that little bit more time to mature and find their feet.
Yeah, and you'll come into an environment that's a smaller environment for years seven and eight, um, in which we've got a connection with the senior school. We've described the geography of it already. So you know that when you go in at year nine, you are familiar, but you're not over familiar. It's still a graduation from the prep school into the senior school. It still feels like the next step on the journey, um, but you've had the chance to pick up all of those soft skills, all of that personal development in a nurturing or more nurturing, smaller family. Back to the same word that I've used a couple of times already.
A more protected environment.
Yeah.
In your Head's Welcome on the school's website, you describe Cranleigh's strengths as your welcoming community and the ability for us to work with every individual child to discover his or her superpower. I love the term superpower. Could you tell us more about how you ensure this welcoming and personalised approach for your pupils and how you feel that they're benefiting from it?
Yeah, so it's very Cranleigh Prep's very, very strong in its co-curricular offer. And, and it's no stone unturned, I guess is probably the way that I'd describe it, and giving the children the chance to try everything. And I love that about prep school age range, that one of the things that I really work hard against is the sense of sort of labels and children thinking themselves as the classic one is sporty. I'm sporty or I'm not sporty. I'm musical. I'm bookish. I'm dramatic. I want prep school kids to feel that they can be all of those things. The time to specialize and drop some of those interests is way down the line. We want our prep school kids to try everything, to be the next Picasso. I always say to be the next Harry Kane. That's because I'm a Tottenham fan. Sorry, I've just turned off quite a few listeners. Um, and so it's really, really important to us that they do that and they don't channel too early, even if they convinced they're going to be the next Marcus Smith on a rugby pitch or whoever it might be. And the reason for that is through that sort of wide range of interests, they protect a sense of self-esteem. So they're not just one type of pupil. And then for whatever reason, maybe they pick up an injury and they're not playing sport. What does that sporty kid then do if they're on crutches for a few weeks or heaven forbid even longer? So a wide range of co-curricular interests, I think, is great, not only for exploring every single nook and cranny of what you might then be as an adult, but in terms of promoting and looking after your self-esteem, I think it's really, really important. There are some children who find book learning harder than others, and they need, therefore, the opportunity to be in the art room and splattering paint and producing these incredible portraits that our kids do to shore up that side of their personality. So it's incredibly important to us. We see education in the broadest sense.
Absolutely. One of the places that I was particularly impressed by um, when I was there was your science rooms, which really are equivalent to a senior school provision
Oh
on
yeah,
site for your
yeah.
pupils. Do you want to just tell me a little bit more about that decision?
Oh well, it's so science is one of the sort of the jewels in our academic crown. There's no doubt about that. Incredibly well resourced. I mean, the reason behind that, and we could say the same for food technology, we could say the same for design technology, we could say the same for art, we could say the same for dance. I mean, I won't go on. But the reason behind that really comes back to that sort of the 13 plus bit, which is we don't want to compromise a decision for a parent to go to a 13 plus prep school and keep them at prep school age for year 7 and 8. We don't want to compromise that with the facilities, the resources, the expertise, and the common room, any of those things. It should be a senior school curriculum experience, but within the family of a prep school. So for me, the sort of the investment in those resources is money very, very well spent.
Absolutely. And there was also you've just had, I believe I'm right in saying, an SEN provision room as well, kind of just for anyone with any neurodiversity who needs that additional support. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a lovely part of the school actually. So that was through a boarding redevelopment that happened a few years ago, and the SEN department was relocated. It's in a lovely, it's got its own space, and literally its own space, and the children have their own spaces. It's quiet, they're not disturbed. There wouldn't, as you'd expect, there not to be anyway. There's completely no stigma attached to our children who are receiving learning support, and that's no longer the case in any good school. But for them to have their own space and their own dedicated staff team, incredibly well resourced, is an important part of our curriculum offer, as indeed it is at the other end where we've got launch programs and more able children being stretched and challenged in all kinds of different ways as well. So it's a school with a broad range of pupils in its pupil body, and
Yeah.
everyone's an individual.
An incredible provision. We know many parents are increasingly interested in how schools are preparing pupils for life beyond education. And obviously, there's a lot of work taking place on that at the senior school. But what are you doing at Cranleigh Prep to prepare the pupils, even at their young ages, for the future and the world that they're going into?
So we're right in the middle of a curriculum innovation working groups plotting our strategy for this right now. So it's pretty exciting times, and we haven't crystallized those decisions yet, but they will definitely include making sure that skills-based curriculum is front and center for our children. So we know what the World Economic Forum want from our future workforce. We know it's going to be skills along the lines of critical thinking and problem solving and reasoning. But at the same time, we also know that there are soft skills is the term that's often used, which is, I think, possibly a little disparaging for the importance of them. But those of collaboration, those of originality and leadership and creativity and initiative, all of those things are really important to us as well in terms of our personal development, and that comes through the not just the curriculum, the co-curriculum, but as I said, the hidden curriculum. They have employability as a core focus of ourselves, but we also want our children to be change makers and future leaders, which are lofty ambitions, but that's probably front and center of our strategic working group, which is that we are ambitious.
Absolutely. And I know that you've got some exciting news to share with us. But in your head's welcome, you also say, I'm delighted to have joined Cranleigh Prep at a really exciting time. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your hopes and plans for the future of the prep and some of the things that are taking place?
Yeah, sure. It's an exciting time because Sam Price, who's the new head at the senior school, a term in advance of me, is someone who is completely open to and welcomes strong collaboration between prep and senior. That's how I'm hardwired as well. So that's a relationship that's working really, really well. But I also I think that any time when you've got two new heads in position at school, it's got to be exciting, right? So it's the benefit of fresh eyes coming in and asking lots of questions. If we're not doing something, then why aren't we doing it? Or if we're doing something that maybe needs rethinking, why are we doing this? And I think that benefit is being felt across both sides of the road. So that in itself is exciting. We have launched our pre-prep for this September, which was it might feel from the outside like a very swiftly moving piece, but actually the thought and the planning that's gone behind this has been going on for some time before my arrival. But that's exceptionally exciting. So that's going to happen in September, and we've got plans for September 26 to extend that down into reception in early years. So that for me as a head was always kind of the missing piece of the Cranleigh Prep School. So it's nice to be able to pick up that piece and fill the gap as soon as possible. But there's a whole stack of other work streams that are going on in the background. We've got a governance strategy day in a couple of weeks' time. I think I'll probably, Chloe, at this point have to say sort of just watch this space before I sort of go beyond my pay grade and start confirming things that need to be run through governors first and foremost. But there's change. There's change in the air. There's a sense of anticipation. There's a sense of what is possible, and that I would say that's definitely true both at the prep and at senior.
Well, I cannot wait to come back and see the pre-prep
Yeah,
in action. You've certainly got the space and the grounds for it.
yeah,
As you say, it's literally a small lane dividing you from the
yeah,
fantastic senior school. And I was lucky enough, I think, to meet the head girl and a few other people when I was there. So
yeah.
I've spoken to the pupils as well as the staff. It's a very exciting time. Thank you very much for giving up your time to talk to us.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Chloe. Thanks for listening.